This is the Red Line, and I am your host, Jimmy Red. Thanks for tuning in. Man, bowl season's over. College football is over. We're done until later this year, folks, and the national championship was decided. 2 national championship semifinal games. We have players declaring for the draft. We got my top 5 at the end of the year. But we're going to start it off with the 2 semifinal games that got these 2 teams set up for the marquee matchup that we just had last night, 2 nights ago, for the fifth time these 2 teams have faced. It's been incredible. These 2 have played each other that much. So the first matchup we had here was the one with Oklahoma and Alabama, and they played in the Capital One Orange Bowl in the semifinal game. And that was a game that when I saw the stats and I saw everything that was laid out, I kind of figured that was going to be a game that was going to be a shootout. Who put more points on the board was going to win it. There was going to be some defense, but the more question I had was Oklahoma's defense going to be able to stop Alabama's offense? I knew that the Oklahoma offense was tough and good, and I knew this was one of the weaker defenses that Alabama's had in years. They lost 7 of their marquee players in the defensive back last year, so I knew it was going to be tough for them to do that. Kyler Murray had a phenomenal game, 308 yards, 19 of 37, but the problem was he didn't have enough time to overcome the lead that Bama built up at the start of the game. Bama was up 28-0 within the first 17 minutes of that game, and he didn't have enough time. I understand he was a baseball star and had great accuracy, and he has legs and can run and do all that, but when you fall down 28-0 to Alabama, it's hard to get back into that game, and Tua did not let off the throttle. Tua Tagovailoa had 318 yards himself and 4 touchdowns, so he doubled what Kyler Murray had, because Kyler Murray threw for 2 and rushed for 1 himself, so he had a total of 3. He rushed for 1, but, it just too little too late for Oklahoma. You thought it was going to be a better game. It was a good game, but just not enough there. Harris for them, Damian Harris had another 2 rushing touchdowns for Alabama. He went to the draft this year. He is leaving for going his class, going into the big dogs, so that's a loss they're going to have next year at Alabama, but all in all, Alabama played a great game there, was unable to overcome that high-powered offense of Oklahoma and win that one 45-34 to head in and face the Clemson Tigers in the national championship. These 2 teams were facing off yet again for a national title. Clemson was in this matchup. They played into the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, and they played against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, it's one of those teams I was a little leery on putting into the playoffs. They were undefeated. They had to be in there, but everybody says you could have put UCF in. UCF lost their quarterback, Mackenzie Melton, to an injury, so you kind of had to look at one direction. You looked at Notre Dame, because everybody else after that was a 2-loss team at that time, pretty much. You had LSU. Actually, no, you didn't. You had Ohio State you could have put in there, but everybody else besides that was a 2-loss team like LSU and all of them. So it was tough. And I think they made the right choice by putting an undefeated independent school in there in Notre Dame, considering they played against some tougher schools as in Michigan and stuff like that. They did that early on in the year. Ian Book did not have a good game. After he came in about week 4 for Brian Wimbish, he turned it on. He looked really, really good. But when he went and faced this defense of Clemson, which had a phenomenal game in this game, and we're going to speak more about their defense in the national championship, they shut Ian Book down to only 160 yards and forced him to an interception. That kid had it going on all the way up until this point, and he saw that defense, and the defense was way strong. And I thought it was going to be an easier game for Ian Book because of Dexter Lawrence not playing and being suspended before this game with 2 other defensive players on that team. But old Sunshine Trevor Lawrence could not be stopped. Number 1 recruit in the nation last year out of Cartersville, Georgia, who played for Coach King with the Purple Hurricanes there in Georgia. I mean, turned it on. Found a way to go. He's won state titles, and now he's sitting here in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, winning Cotton Bowls for his boys. He ended up throwing 27 for 39, going for 330 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first playoff game This kid is 6'6". He's 19 years old, and he played a game like that with his guys. And that there shows his composure, his heart, and his will. And then they got that running back they have there who's been tough. Last year, he was just a speedster. This year, he's showing his speed and how he can come up through the middle, and Travis Etienne. And Etienne punched one in for a touchdown. He ran for 109. Etienne looked like just a machine out there in that game against Notre Dame, who everybody thought was going to be a bigger, stronger defense than Etienne. But he just ran through them like they were nothing. Lawrence threw against them like they were nothing. And Clemson looked like the team that was going to be the one that could potentially knock off Alabama heading into that national championship game. So the stage was set. We knew who it was going to be. We knew it was Clemson, number 2, versus number 1 Bama. But these teams have faced each other 4 times. 3 out of those 4 times, guess what? The team who was ranked number 1 or higher did not win. And also, with that being said, no number 1 team since the college football playoffs have started has won the national championship. You had Clemson win it Clemson win it at 2 this year. You had Bama win it at 4 last year. Clemson at 2 the year before that. Bama the year before that at 2, and then Ohio State the inaugural year to win it. So no team within 5 years of the college football playoffs has been the number 1 seed and won it. So that was already on Alabama's not good side, for sure. Plus, they were playing against something they haven't seen before, and a young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and a very, very tough competitor in Clemson. So they come and they get all set up, ready to go. Game starts. It looks great. And you think it's going to be a start? Great. But it doesn't start real great if you're a Bama fan, because Tua Tagovailoa goes out there and throws a pick 6. Early, just whoop, pick 6. That's the end of that book. Put them up 7-0. Trevor Lawrence never even touched the field. Pick 6 to the house. And I was just like, wow. So he's all, my bad, tells everybody. Comes back out there. And the next thing you know, he goes down the yard. 63 yards to Judy. Jerry Judy caught that ball, and they're back in this game now. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, Clemson says, okay, we'll go back down the field. And they walk back down the field now. And they ran one in from 17 yards with the power back and speedster and Travis Etienne. So now the score's 21-7, and we're not even 5 minutes into this game yet. We've scored 21 points in under 5 minutes of this game. They were on a record pace, it seemed like, to set records for this game. But Bama all of a sudden started falling off there, because Bama missed the PAT there when they got their second touchdown, which made it 13-14 there towards the end of the first quarter. And that was their 9th missed one of the season. That's the most in FBS. And once that happened, I think everything started going the opposite direction for Bama. They realized that Clemson was here to play, and they were going to be tough, and they weren't going to really rattle this young man who was 6 feet tall and Trevor Lawrence, 6'6", and Trevor Lawrence. Excuse me. And they didn't, because he went out there and he threw for 350 yards against this defense, which I mentioned already is not the typical defense of Alabama. They have other players that are not there that they used to have that went or have been injured, and it's just not the typical defense. Now, their offense next year going to be phenomenal with Jerry Judy, and then they're going to bring back Jacobs, and they're going to have Tua coming back. They're going to have all these guys coming back with Smith as well at wide receiver. So they're going to bring all these guys back. They're going to have a great offense, and the defense will have another year under them, so I think it'll pick up. But you're also bringing back Trevor Lawrence next year as well for Clemson. Clemson, wow. That's all you can say. I thought they were going to have a tough shot for sure, because they had those defensive guys missing. You didn't have all your defensive guys was Dexter Lawrence, but Wilkins picked it up for him. And T. Higgins on the ground. Another great game for T. Higgins. I mean, what can you say about that guy? Higgins, man. I mean, not Higgins. I'm sorry. Travis Etienne. What can you say about Etienne? Man. 2 rushing touchdowns. 3 in 2 games. The guy's good. Clemson ends up winning that game in a complete massacre. 44-16. They forced 2 interceptions from Tua. A fumble that was recovered by Tua. But that was tough. And if I was a coach in a locker room when they went in there, I mean, it was kind of sort of still a game, you could say, at half. But I don't know if you want to call it that. If I was the coach and I was Nick Saban, I was telling our defense they need to step up, my O-line they need to step up, and I'm telling the guys, if you want to do something, we got to find a way to put points on the board now and find a way to stop them. And I need to talk to my quarterback, and I need to get him calmed down in Tua, because Tua threw 2 interceptions before that, and that's when the fumble happened when he got hit. So I'm talking to him and calming him down. Obviously, they didn't do that. If I was in the Clemson locker room, I'm telling my guys, awesome defense. We're doing what we need to do. We're forcing interceptions. We're getting the fumbles. We're playing great. And I'm telling them, keep the foot on the gas. Don't back down. It's Bama. They can be back in it at any time. Because typically in this matchup between these two that have played each other 4 times, the game was won in the fourth quarter. So they could have crawled back into it at any point. So I was telling them, hey, stay on the gas. And they did. And they won it with the largest margin ever defeated a Nick Saban team. 44-16. That's horrendous. That's 28 points that they defeated Nick Saban's team by. It's the biggest loss Nick Saban has ever suffered in his career at being at Alabama. So huge shout out to Clemson on the national title. That was the first time a team has went 15-0 since 1897. 121 seasons. The last team to do it was Penn. So that's a huge shout out to them. I just want to hit on a couple games real brief. One of them was the Washington game and the Ohio State. It's the granddaddy of them all. You got to talk about it. The Rose Bowl. You obviously know the head coach was stepping out. This was his final game in Urban Meyers. They were bringing in Ryan Day as the new head coach. So it was a game you had to watch. Jake Browning and his team were down 28-3 with 12 minutes and 18 seconds remaining. With 52 seconds remaining in that game, they were only down 28-23. They crawled back into that game and almost won it. So a huge shout out to Jake Browning for not giving up, and also to Myles Gaskin for throwing his first career touchdown. He's a running back. Nice play by him. Also, Dwayne Haskins going to the draft. That was announced. He threw for 251 yards as Ohio State won that game 28-23. And they asked Urban Meyer on the sideline, what are the chances we'll ever see you come out of the tunnel again? And he said, not likely. I think I'm done. So pretty much that's the end of Urban Meyer's career. Great career for Urban Meyer. Way to go out on top with the granddaddy of them all in the Rose Bowl. So congratulations to Ohio State and Urban Meyer. Another game I want to touch on was the UCF-LSU game. UCF, obviously, their quarterback, Mackenzie Melton, got hurt. They were in behind their backup quarterback in Mac Jr. He struggled, but they found a way to keep themselves in this game. They only lost 32-40. Jake Barrow had almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. But, I want to give a big shout-out to UCF on carrying that 25-game win streak, getting it snapped by LSU. You would almost think that if they would have still had their quarterback, Mackenzie Melton, they could have won this game, only being beat 8. So, condolences to UCF and a great run for them on winning 25 straight. And the other one I want to talk about is the All-State Sugar Bowl, where the Texas Longhorns defeated the Georgia Bulldogs. And that was the one where they had a little bit of a scuffle there before the game. You had Bevo there get into it with the Bulldog and almost hurt some people on the sidelines. So that was pretty dangerous. Glad to see everybody got away from that safe. But Texas came out firing in that game. And it was just wasn't enough. Georgia couldn't get back into it late. They couldn't. They couldn't get into it late. They couldn't get back into the game. And they were defeated 21-28 with Sam Ehlinger having a great game. He threw no interceptions. He didn't throw any touchdowns, but he didn't make any mistakes either with the interceptions, and that's what kept him in it, because Ehlinger typically will throw some interceptions throughout a game, but he didn't have to really use his arm very much because most of his damage himself was done on the ground. He punched 3 of them in running himself, Sam Ehlinger did, and that was awesome because that's what he needed to do. But for Georgia on the other side, obviously they got Jake Fromm, the kid who stepped in for him last year, the young man who played a phenomenal season, stepped in after the injury of Eason, played great all year, but you needed more out of his backs. You needed more out of Elijah Holyfield, and you needed more out of DeAndre Swift, and you didn't get it. DeAndre Swift only carried for 12 yards, and Holyfield only carried for 65. So you didn't get what you needed out of those, and neither one had a touchdown. Your running game is where you get the ball moving. They couldn't get it going on the ground. Texas defense stood up strong most of the day, able to shut them down, win that game 28-21. So that's a big win for Texas. Puts them back on the map. Lets people know Texas Longhorns football, at least for 1 year, was relevant. And then one more thing before we go, I have my top 5 rankings to end out the year. I got coming in at 5 with a 10-3 record. I know there was teams that had better records than these guys, but I'm putting LSU in at 5. LSU was the 5th best team to me. They suffered some tough losses to like Bama and all those guys. So tough losses to those schools there. Number 4, I had Oklahoma, 2 losses, one coming to Texas, the other coming to Clemson. They avenged their 1 loss to Texas they had early in the year. So I got Oklahoma in at 4. Number 3, Ohio State. Only 1 loss this year. I put them in. Their 1 loss was a huge blowout, though, to Purdue. I know that's tough that they had that 26-point loss to Purdue, but I'm putting them in at 3. They just had an off week. I couldn't put them in because of it, but I will move them up to 3 now with the big win this week, a couple weeks ago in the Rose Bowl over Washington. Bama, obviously, they got smoked by Clemson in the national title, but I'm still putting them at 2. They ended with a 14-1 record. They're in it too. And then obviously the number 1 team on everybody's board, no questions asked. UCF, national champs, no for sure. They got beat. Clemson, number 1 team in the country, and they are heading on to next year in the sunset with defending national championships. So that's all. That's a wrap on the 2018 season with the national championships being crowned in college football. I've had a blast doing it. Hopefully you guys have had a blast watching the RedLine. Make sure you guys tune in. Keep watching. There's more stuff to come up. Basketball is coming up for college and the NBA. Make sure you guys keep watching this right here. Thank you for watching all season long, and we look forward to seeing you guys right back here on the RedLine with more football stuff next year. See you guys.